Tuck City Council meeting for March 23rd, 2026. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks to everybody for joining us in person and online. Jamie, will you call the roll?
Anderson.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Gardner.
Here.
Muncy.
Here.
Peterson. Stanton.
Here. Can I get a motion to excuse council members, Peterson's absence?
Motion to excuse Council Peterson for her absence
A
tonight.
second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. For my comments, we have some good news to share. We got an email from the woman that from Allegan Cares that Gregory and Chris and Joe met with last week about the senior meals in Allegan County, and it looks like, you know, given the feedback that everybody, the county has received, that they have expanded the program and are able to provide better services to seniors. So I think, you know, are taking an additional interest. I know the township passed a resolution, other townships or cities did. So it seems like it's a good solution. So just wanted to thank everybody for engaging in that. And that's what I have. Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council.
Oh.
Just a couple highlights. We're going into one of those periods where you're going to have kind of an extra week in between without a meeting. So wahoo on that. I'm sure you're excited. You've had a heavy workload, but you're going to start to see a lot of construction starting to pick up next month with projects around town. We had a good meeting with the Shippers Excavating folks to kick off the Maple Street and other infrastructure improvements. As construction starts, we're actually going to be meeting every couple of weeks to kind of stay on top of any concerns or issues and monitor progress. In the meantime, the folks, especially along Maple Street and those cul-de-sacs there, our public works team is working hard to kind of get some notices out to them, letting them know that the construction is going to start, and then asking them if they're interested in kind of weekly updates to share their email with us, and we'll push those out to them weekly. That Water Street gate valve work down here on Water Street is going to be disruptive, potentially up to 8 hours of no water service. And remember, the whole reason for this particular work is to prevent that issue from happening in the future, where we can isolate future water main leaks in a better way than shutting everything off. So we got to go through another pain point to get there, but some notices will be going out on that as well as some intersection closures that are associated with it. So you'll start to see those things. I anticipate you might start getting some questions, but if folks have any particular questions or concerns, send them our way. We'll definitely connect them with the right folks to get their questions answered. And I won't go through it in detail because I suspect Councilmember Muncy may during his parking improvements task force report, but to the extent that anybody's listening and curious upfront, I really encourage everyone to take a look at the parking improvements task force meeting packet. They don't meet for a couple of weeks, but we got their packet out actually 2 weeks in advance because it's so big and there's so many reports and data analysis, and they're starting to get into the meat of things. And there's a lot of important things that I think you all would be interested in kind of reviewing, keeping up on as they go through their work, but the community as well. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Great, thanks. Any agenda changes? All right, no guest speakers tonight, so that takes us to the public comment period on agenda items only. Everybody in the room and online are able to speak for up to 3 minutes on any agenda topic. And if you just start by giving us your name and where you live.
My name is Kimberly Badrick. I live at 610 Lake Street, and I'm here to comment on the issue of the STR at 610 Lake, which my husband, CJ Badrick, has been accused of running without proper licensing. My husband has been contacted by the city attorney and the city manager several months ago regarding the issue with our short-term rental. And once he attempted to clear things up with them, it was taken to city council and discussed in private session. to which City Council wanted to have no further action other than a discussion. The issue was then put on the Planning Commission agenda months later at the direction of the city manager and the mayor. This was a surprise to us and also to the planning chairman, as we understand it, as there was to be a generic discussion of perception issues. The commissioners at last week's meeting were not happy it was on their agenda. One commissioner threatened to walk out if it remained on the agenda. It is now on the agenda once again tonight at the direction of the mayor. First off, I'd like to set the record straight by letting you all know that CJ does not run that Airbnb. I do. Always have, from day one. It's also obvious that I do from the city's many exhibits provided by Granicus. I've always been listed as the host. And when we applied for that license years ago, we were advised by previous staff to put that property under one application, as it had always been rented that way for several years, and previous owner operators for several years before we owned it. We were following that direction. Once we realized our property would actually require an ADU, special land use, we then applied for that once our current license was up for renewal. Had the previous owner operators or us been directed properly by city staff, it would have saved us a lot of money, a lot of time. Due to the huge increase that you have on special land use applications, would have avoided a lot of controversy. What a waste of time and taxpayer money for this witch hunt. If the city manager and mayor would like to continue their witch hunt, here I am. It's me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Anyone else in the room?
CJ Badrick, also 610 Lake Street Planning Commissioner. She has the anger part covered pretty well. I don't know that that was going to help and benefit this conversation. I think there's opportunity for you to take the win. As she stated, we had a valid license. We were set up that way. That's the way we had been. That's the way the previous owners and the way that property has been rented for many years before us. With the STR changes that you made with all the different, or you've got a lot of good education going out. Even some of that has slipped through with with the several people coming late with their applications recently. So I think you can take the win. You have good opportunity. You've continued to educate the people. Some of those other legacy licenses that are going to drop off because they were on a 3-year term will now be on a 1-year term. Once you get past any of those legacies, some of those things will be better, and you'll this will end up being the case. So I think you have an opportunity to take the win and move forward. So I think there's a good message as well available.
Thanks,
Thank
CJ.
Thank you, CJ.
Okay.
Anyone else in the room?
Good evening. I'm Bobby Gahn at 341 Main Street, and I am a member of the Planning Commission. At the Planning Commission meeting this past Thursday, March the 19th, a motion was made by Commissioner Lachey and seconded by Commissioner Marino to remove new business item E, an opportunity for learning and improvement, from the agenda for 2 reasons. One, it might be a vehicle for the public shaming of Commissioner Bajrak. And 2, as a learning and improvement opportunity, it is not necessary or productive. While I supported the motion to remove the item from the agenda, my support was not entirely for the reasons articulated by Commissioner Lachey. I'm taking this opportunity to go on the record as to my position. In reviewing the learning and improvement opportunity materials that were provided by the city in the Planning Commission packet, I cannot unsee what I've seen. And that is a sitting planning commissioner, Mr. Bajrak, appears to have violated a number of ordinances over a period of years, some of which occurred during his time as a planning commissioner. I supported the removal of item E because I believe this matter is a matter of integrity for the city. If in this matter there is a learning and improvement opportunity, it lies certainly with Mr. Bajrak and also with you, the council. As a planning commissioner, I understand that my responsibility is to ensure my conduct is consistent with city ordinances, which, by the way, I promised to uphold when I became a commissioner. I don't believe I need to learn that, nor do I understand how one improves on upholding an ordinance. One either upholds an ordinance or one doesn't. When any city official is accused of violating an ordinance, it has been my understanding that person will be held to account by the city council, who is responsible for the enforcement of Saugatuck's policy of ethical standards of conduct. It is also my understanding that following a closed session of city council, when this matter was referred to planning, the city attorney reviewed this with the chair of planning, Steve Manns. It was agreed that Chair Manns would review this matter with the planning commissioners as a whole, as a learning and improvement opportunity. As I consider my ongoing role as a planning commissioner, and since I can't unknow what I now know, am I to assume that council found so little merit in the allegations pertaining to Commissioner Bajrak that they believed an adequate redress would be simply for the sitting planning commissioners to learn and improve? In my opinion, this is a deeply serious and potentially quite damaging reputational hit on our processes, on the Planning Commission, on the city, and on each of us as responsible officials at a time when trust in our system of governance, including our officials, has never been more fraught and has never been more critically important and necessary.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Bobby.
Anyone else in the room? All right, anyone online wish to speak, please raise your Zoom hand. And Jamie, help me see.
AJ Mayo.
Austin.
Hello. AJ Marino, Mason Street, also a member of Planning Commission. First and foremost, looking at the 220-page packet, I'm very sorry. I'll be thinking of you all. That is a doozy. So, but I want to briefly speak to the issue 13A, new business, Planning Commission matter. And just kind of provide some perspective from myself, and then I guess underscore the importance of the decision before council now. So when this item was placed on the Planning Commission agenda last week, I supported removing it, not necessarily because the substance or the seriousness of the issue, but because of the role of our body. So Planning Commission, we're not an enforcement or an adjudicatory body. We don't like do investigative matters like that. So I just did not believe it was an appropriate or productive use of the commission's time to take up what was framed as a learning opportunity, particularly because there was no indication in the memo that was provided to us that there was a broader or systemic issue among commissioners. But that said, now the matter is properly before council, and I do think it is important to at least recognize the significance of what is being considered. So the memo that was in our packet, that's now in your packet, that was talked about in the commercial record, it's been made public. And it outlines facts that do raise serious questions about whether a sitting planning commissioner may have participated in matters in which he had a personal interest without disclosure. So, and under both the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act and the Planning Enabling Act, that issue carries specific legal implications. So those acts, they provide that a commissioner must disclose potential conflicts of interest before participating, and that failure to do so constitutes malfeasance in office. So I'm not here tonight to advocate for a particular outcome, but I do think it's important that whatever decision council reaches, it is clear, it's well-reasoned, and it's grounded in that legal framework. Because again, this issue has been aired publicly, members of the community are aware of it, so if council determines that no action is warranted, I think it is important that there needs to be a clear explanation as to why this does not rise to the level of a disclosable conflict or malfeasance under the acts. And if council determines that it does, then the reasoning for whatever action is taken should be equally clear, because even whatever's found, like this is still discretionary to council, even if we get to the point of removal. So just from my perspective, what matters most at this point is resolution. So if Commissioner Bajrak remains on the commission, then the issue needs to be clearly addressed in a way that resolves it. And not just for the commission, but for him as well, because he should not be left in a position where he is effectively operating under an unresolved cloud or feels the need to continually defend himself. And the commission should not be asked to move forward with that uncertainty either. So whatever decision council takes, clarity and finality here are essential. so that we can move forward and focus on the work in front of us. So again, ultimately the goal is to ensure integrity of the commission and allow for us to continue working on the important work ahead. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you all.
Thanks, AJ. Brad Lubbers, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to briefly touch on what you mentioned, Mayor, in your comments. I just wanted to thank all the many people that gave feedback regarding our transition with the senior meals. And those are the things we look at for as we continue to make improvement and evaluate the change that has been made. We will continue to do that over time as we went from one contract to another. So, but just wanted to take time to thank everybody for the feedback, so we know what people are thinking out there and we know where to proceed next. So, thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Anyone else online? All right, that will close the public comment. That takes us to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
Right, there's a second.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments before we vote?
Yeah, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. A couple items on here that were not discussed in a workshop session. I'd like just to bring up a couple questions. One which was discussed is the application for the Recreation Passport Grant, which I'm very excited about. $260,000 in cost, $10,000 contribution from the city, and then grant and donor to cover the rest. Pretty excited about that. I support the resolution, but just a question on the actual project agreement. How much flexibility does the city have to make adjustments in the approved concept if needed? I know there's some things that we've decided in the option one that weren't necessarily listed in the program document. So I just want to understand how much flexibility the city has if something's, if there's minor or small changes, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, any changes would have to go back to the state to review just to make sure they're good with them. But we at least have to cover these project components, which they're taking those project components from our initial grant application and what we kind of focused on that we wanted to accomplish. So
Okay.
if there's like a dramatic change in scope, they might have some concerns, but I think as long as we're staying, in general around improving accessibility and resurfacing an existing area and continuing to use those. The other piece that is important to note, because I know there was some discussion about, tennis versus pickleball versus combination, and you all landed on kind of keeping the existing combination. Whatever we end up with will have to stay in place for a period of 20 years.
Right.
Otherwise, we risk losing points on future applications. So we are making an investment for these items to be there for a significant period of time.
Okay, thank you. Because the two things I did not see in the document were the multi-use court, it just says tennis court, doesn't say tennis/pickleball court. So to make sure that doesn't constrain us.
Yep.
Two is that we did agree with option one to include a shuffleball court, which is not actually listed there either. So I just want to make sure that that's not going to impede us.
I don't see that with
Our decision.
would impede us. No.
Okay, thank you. The Spear Street boat launch, I brought this up in past years and since we did not discuss this in workshop, I'm very happy that Sean Steele and the Star of Saugatuck operation has agreed to help us manage the boat launch. It gets heavy use and I'm a full supporter of that use. But the way that the agreement's written, it does say that there's some things that the city commits to help the operation as well as what the operator will have responsibility for. And I'm just interested to know, has there been a discussion with Mr. Steele or whoever's the operator to say, hey, how did the year go? We seem to be collecting, we seem to flatline the amount that we're collecting on a yearly basis, and that's much smaller than we have in many years past. But I'm just wondering, is there a way that we can help him improve the operation? Have there been discussions with, DPW, just generally? That's an end of business year review that I would typically expect us to do. Say, hey, how are things going? Do you like what you're doing? Is there things we can do better? So I'm just curious if we had those conversations with Mr. Steele.
Yeah, we did. We have had some correspondence recently about that. I think, they kind of pointed to wondering if more folks were using the launches within Douglas and then maybe having less, restrictions and more parking and maneuverability and all those sorts of things. So they wondered if that might be the case. I also, looking at our team and, we kind of looked at, well, are we selling more, maybe, seasonal passes and they're seeing less, daily passes? That's not the case. We're not selling a whole lot of seasonal passes. In fact, we're going to do a communication here soon that'll kind of remind folks that, hey, we do have passes. If you're a taxpayer here, there's a kind of a reduced seasonal pass that you can obtain, and just remind folks that that's out there, that that's a requirement and that sort of thing. I think I did reach out to the council member Stanton because they, the Star had kind of pointed to the launch next to Red Dock, and she has good eyes on that. Kind of wondered if she might have some thoughts. I think her thought was that maybe just like the parking, downtown is probably the biggest factor and why folks may not choose to use the ramp, as well as water levels are down. So it may not, while we're not seeing a total accessibility issue there, it may prohibit some folks from going a little deeper and using it as much, was kind of her thought on that. If I'm correct, I want to speak for you, but.
Yeah, just, noticing that with the water levels being as low as they are, it's kind of hard to back a boat down that dock as much as, going to either Schultz Park or over at the one by Red Dock. And there's lots of parking at both of those other spots where not always the case in Saugatuck. So maybe that, I was just wondering if those were probably some of the issues.
Yeah. And I think we'll see what comes out of the parking improvements task force. If it's, paid parking is being analyzed, right? If that was something that, not saying we're doing it, just it's something that's being analyzed, but, or maybe certain areas have, like certain lots are paid parking or something like that. Well, if we were to have certain types of equipment that were placed in those lots, maybe there's, we're placing that equipment at the boat launch and folks can just go up there and use it versus, arriving at hours that maybe the Star's not open and not always maybe following the honor system and us needing, signage, all those sorts of things are pieces that, because I agree, I think it's flat. It's not as, the revenues aren't what they used to be, especially pre-COVID, and trying to figure out what the heck the issue is there.
Okay, yeah, and again, I'm not even going to speak to the parking because I don't think there's really an issue for the boats because my street would be full of trucks with trailers and you can kind of tell when the season starts and when there's fish hitting. I mean, that's when the streets will get busy, and I've never experienced that being an issue. Now, the recreational boaters may be a bit of a different issue because of the parking, but kind of hold on that until we get some more information from the study that's going on. But I think we should be doing everything we possibly can to encourage people to continue to use that ramp. I'd hate to see it be in a position where we're saying, oh, maybe we just shut it down, because I think that does a disservice to there's a certain, like the tribes use it for their sturgeon surveying. There's different people that use that for business as well. So anyway, I've just put that out there because I think it's an important asset for this community. I want to see us support it 100%.
Greg, anything else?
Sure. I do want to say that during the consent agenda from B through K, I certainly do approve. I'm sorry, B through L. I certainly do approve. I cannot approve of the city council workshop minutes from March 18, 2026 for two reasons. Although I've been encouraged by our attorney as well as the mayor that I can vote yes on minutes to a meeting that I have not been to, I also noticed that the meeting minutes include a motion by Muncy, seconded by Gardner for adjournment. So I cannot vote yes on that.
You sure?
So I just want to clarify that, that I would never vote for any kind of meeting minutes to a meeting that I was not present at, as well as a typo that I noticed as well.
All right. Okay. This is a roll call vote. Pardon? What do you?
Does anyone want to?
Do you want to make a motion to correct the?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
If there is something in the minutes that needs to be changed, you're not voting, is someone else going to alert me of that so you can vote to change that?
Yeah, I'm not
Otherwise,
voting,
it's gonna stay as is if you don't vote to change.
Can I make the motion then to amend the city council workshop minutes from March 18th, 2026 to reflect that Councilman Muncy was not present? Is that sufficient? Does that work?
I have it in the minutes that he was not there.
Oh.
I believe that
the adjournment that he did.
He did not vote.
motion, so
Right, there's an adjournment here and a motion by me that I can't approve.
Sufficient.
No, I'm happy to make that motion that he was not present for the adjournment.
I know it's a technicality, but it's still.
no, that's good. Yeah.
Who needs a second?
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Roll
No?
call.
Okay, roll call.
Just to make sure, you're making a motion to approve the consent agenda with that change,
The
right?
change
Okay.
that Councilman Muncy was not present
Okay.
to adjourn the workshop on March 18th.
Technically.
Go ahead, yeah. I think I'm going to say the same thing as you are, yeah.
Motion on the
Right.
table. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so either Councilmember Clark could, take a friendly amendment to his motion and agree to that, or withdraw it, and I guess you can.
I'm going to withdraw my motion so that you can
That
restate
is can stand.
your
Let
motion.
me take a crack at this. Motion to approve the consent agenda with the change to item 9A to reflect that Councilmember Muncy was not present at the city council workshop to make the motion that it was adjourned.
Any motion.
Adjourned. Yeah, adjourned, yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Okay, thank you. Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
No.
Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, that takes us to approval of accounts payable. Can I get a motion for that? On page 129.
Madam Mayor, I motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $102,813.12.
I'll second.
Any questions? All right, this is a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that takes us to a public hearing. I call to order, a public hearing with the purpose of, ordinance 230323-A, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Saugatuck by approving a planned unit development overlay and associated plan for 640 Water Street. Staff presentation, Grayson? Thank you for joining us. And this is page 131.
Yeah, so 640 Water Street's been going through a bit of a process to tear down the existing building there, and they've proposed a new one that will have a retail space on the first floor with the ability to house a commercial kitchen down there. And then they're proposing 3 short-term rental units on the second floor. They've gone through Planning Commission and received the recommendation for you guys to approve that. There's a few outstanding items, and they're working with the Historic District Commission currently to get their final approval. They're happy with the design. They just want to have some confirmation in the materials before giving it the final go ahead. And as you can see in the memo for you guys, there's a few outstanding items that we'd like to get finalized prior to you guys giving the okay. But just wanted to leave those there for your viewing, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is not at this meeting, but they did say that was because we were recommending that the motion it be postponed and they would come to the next one to speak with you guys.
All right. Any supporting, we didn't receive any supporting comments. Anyone online or in the room wish to make a supporting comment? Anyone in the room or online wish to make opposing comments? Again, we haven't received any letters. All right, well then, general comments. Anyone wish to make any comments at all? Doesn't look like there are any. All right, I will close the public, close the public comment portion. And so this is now up for council's discussion. Any comments, questions for Grayson? Or Russ, you have any color you wish to add as our planning commission?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. This was discussed at the March 19th Planning Commission meeting. And the Planning Commission, as you read in the minutes, are approving approval of the PUD. I think I saw Mr. Brown on the call, but he may have dropped. Mr. Brown is the owner of the property, Jack Brown. don't think he's there anymore, but I have to give kudos to Mr. Brown and his architect because they have listened to the planning commission as well as more importantly, the Historic District Commission on some thoughts about how to make that property more conducive and fitting in with the waterfront property. And as a matter of fact, if you looked at the materials, actually included some interesting photos of old fishing boats in town and the portholes and different things that they've incorporated into the building design to make it more fitting with the area. So, and the other issue that was had resulted in the planning commission not approving it initially was the lack of access to the lakefront or riverfront in order for people to walk, and they were able to accommodate that in their new design as well. So I just want to thank Mr. Brown and his architect for listening to the commissions in terms of what's best for the community and make sure it fits in with the waterfront. So just thank you. The other thing, and I'm going to bring this up at the planning commission, is the city does not currently have a requirement in its zoning ordinance to require that we have 3D architectural renderings of properties. And it's important these days in order for us to be able to understand how a property is going to actually fit into a community. And more importantly, how it's going to fit in with the buildings that surround it. And Mr. Brown, as architect, did a good job in terms of trying to represent that as best they could, showing the buildings around it and so forth. But there have been some recent experiences in the community where that has resulted in some developments that have maybe not necessarily fit as we thought they would. So sometimes just a scale drawing or elevations don't necessarily tell the story. So that's something I'm going to bring up from an ordinance standpoint that I think we need to include so we can require that of future applicants. But I'm a yes on this PUD and looking forward to seeing the project come to light.
Great.
Could I ask, Councilmember Gardner, when they were talking about when I was originally part of one of the meetings that was a pre-construction meeting a long time ago, there were supposed to be like 3 points of being able to get to basically the waterfront on that property. Now, we were also looking at it in terms of the building that's next to it on that same parcel, if you will. Will there still be points where you can walk out there that is for the public?
Yes.
And how, can you explain to me how that works, like northeast, like where they're coming through?
Yeah.
Because I'm not seeing it in the drawing.
Yeah, let me get to the right
Okay.
drawing here. Maybe Grace can get to it faster.
That made it sound like where there's parking, that's where the public access will be.
Yeah,
Is that?
Yeah, so they're actually kind of partnering with 650 because their updated proposal is only for 640 Water Street.
Okay.
The easement is in conjunction with 650 here, where the entrance will go.
Page
along
164, Jane.
So are
Thank
there
you.
2 different owners now of these
There-
properties?
It's the same owner currently.
Okay.
They just wanted to make sure it was separate in case anything were to happen down the line. But as you can see, the entryway will actually be on 650. And it's going to take that diagonal down, and then 640 will have that larger pathway along the waterfront. And that's to help separate from, one of the concerns was that it was going across the parking lot and pedestrian safety. So they were offered to switch it over so that it would be safer.
Okay. And so that will be the entry point, but there's not an entry point in this area?
Not to the south, no.
Okay, so just the entry point there.
And there's proposed signage as well to alert people that there is access to the public waterfront.
And from these pictures, I'm noticing there's parking that's been added to this property. Is that true?
Yeah, I think there's
Is
3
that,
spots.
there are parking places there? And when I'm looking at these renderings, it looks like there's a garbage area and 1, 2, 3 parking spaces.
Yep, they're planning to use those for the 3 short-term rentals that are on the second floor.
I just wanted to give them props for
Well,
that. I really appreciate that. And that helps me to approve something like this, so.
Yeah, the other point to mention is, this new design was unanimously approved by the Historic District Commission
Oh, great.
at their last meeting.
Awesome.
I had thought in the proposal, it said 4 parking spots.
I
but it's
thought I
just
did
the
too.
3?
Did that change?
Yeah, that did change,
Okay.
and that was due to a requirement for setbacks. So the dumpster had to be pushed back a little bit farther
I
to
see.
encroach on the waterfront setback.
So there's 3 short-term rental units, 3 parking spots. So, okay.
That's good.
I think that's.
Yeah, that's adding 3 more parking places here in the city. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no ordinance requirement for them to provide parking.
Correct.
They're doing that as part of their design. So they were listening to the comments from the planning commission, presumably from the storage.
I
commission as
appreciate
well.
that.
Great. Anything else? My only comment is just to make a pitch that they use native Michigan plants when they're doing plantings. I think that's in keeping with the the tree city and what's good for the ecology around here. So, okay, anything else before we close the public hearing? All right, close the public hearing, which takes us to new business A, which is the same thing, essentially, ordinance 260323A, ordinance to amend the zoning or to amend the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city by approving a planned unit development overlay and associated plan for 640 Water Street.
Let's see.
131.
Madam Mayor, I will make a motion to postpone a decision on the proposed plan unit development to April 13th, 2026 to allow finalization of the following: an easement agreement, floor plans and overall site plan, Historic District Commission approval of materials, and final ordinance language.
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, that takes us to new business B, Planning Commissioner matter on page 171. I will tee this up. So the issue before us is what actions, if any, City Council wishes to take in response to issues covered in the memo from the city manager that's included in our packet. As stated in the city manager's memo, this matter was reviewed with City Council. It was also reviewed with Chairman Manns. It was suggested that I, meaning Ryan, present the factual findings to the Planning Commission so that the Planning Commission is aware and can have a discussion as a learning and improvement opportunity of how to avoid such issues in the future. The Planning Commission, as we all know, met last Thursday and voted unanimously to remove discussion from their meeting agenda, stating that this matter properly belongs with City Council, not planning. And I, actually believe that it does properly belong with council. So here we are. Before I begin, I want to thank everyone who has provided comments. Jim Bauk emailed us and that his communication is in our packet. We've received correspondence and public comment from Bobby Gaunt, Planning Commissioner Gaunt, Planning Commissioner Baldwin submitted written feedback, and Kimberly Badrick submitted both written feedback and spoke. And Mr. Marino, Commissioner Marino also provided public comment. Their communications of the written communications will be in the next packet, so there'll be a public record of those. My rationale for including this on the agenda is that, we were looking to planning for their thoughts, and their thoughts were council should take it up. And I think I think Mr. Bauk makes a really good point in his letter to us that if we stay silent, it looks like we're sweeping a potentially really important issue under the rug. And I don't think that reflects well on this council. And so it's on the agenda. So we can either start with a motion or we can just start with a discussion and take it from there. And I will follow your lead.
I have a question real quick. And so, Holly, you decided to add this to the agenda on Friday?
Yes.
I kind of want to revisit the idea of having council folks here, all of us on council, adding things to the agenda. I know that we had a talk and we talked about it, to try to save time, and I kind of understand that. But by adding things to the agenda during a meeting, it gives a little bit more openness to council folks, everybody on council, to help add to the agenda. It doesn't mean that it has to be a new project for our employees to take on, but I understand the time that we talked about when we changed, how we do the agenda and how to do a quarterly type thing. I think it's just fair to allow every council person to make a change or an addition to agenda, even on the day of a meeting. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
And then also, I believe that we've already discussed this. I think that most of council kind of stood where we stood on this, and we understood it to be a mistake, and that an understanding that it was a regular rental, that they had had it under a regular rental, that CJ understood it to be, and as soon as it was brought to their attention, they made it right. I have to say that I agree wholeheartedly with the Planning Commission's meeting, as well as Mark Lachey and his comments, which can be seen at the YouTube meeting, which I watched this afternoon. And I have to say that I stand behind the Planning Commission and how they felt. And I believe that we've already discussed how we as a council felt. So to me, it was a surprise to see it on the agenda today.
So two points. First, to your agenda, adding agendas in the meeting. When we have our quarterly discussion on our priorities, let's put that on the list of things for us to discuss, because that's time when we're going to look at changes we want to make to how we work.
Well, then this could have been added to the quarterly time, right? Or
actually, the mayor does have the authority to add.
That's true.
And so I was acting on that prerogative, given if we had.
As you had also expressed how you felt about our decision on this case.
So we didn't make a decision on this case. We were in closed meeting.
We did.
No, we didn't. You can't make decisions in closed session, Gregory. We didn't make a decision. We indicated our desire to have the city manager. What?
It seems like there's a little bit of, I hear both the two council members.
I have not revealed anything that we talked about in a closed session.
There's a little bit of, we're tipping our toes a little bit into that. So maybe we'll let Mr. Cunningham kind of frame for you, if you want to discuss your discussion you had in closed session, how you could go about doing that if you want to.
Yeah, and I just echo Ryan's points. I think it's important to be careful about that. I think the council has the right to waive privilege and the confidentiality of both the legal opinion and closed session if it were to choose to do that. However, if you did not want to take that option, you could also have open discussions tonight, as long as you don't reference what was discussed or what occurred in the closed session. And I would just encourage that if you choose that latter path, to ensure that the discussions tonight are based on the discussions that have occurred tonight, and they're not drawing from or referencing previous discussions that may have occurred in closed session. So again, there's sort of two pathways. One would be the waiver route, and one would be to just kind of have a independent discussion tonight, a new discussion separate from the closed session. Happy to take any questions that come up throughout as well. I'm here for you if you need me.
Thank you, Trent.
And getting back to why I felt it needed to be on the agenda tonight, at the Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Gardner said that, the council was not going to take this, the council had decided not to take it back up. And so setting aside what Trent just said and not speaking to that anymore, that left everyone watching that meeting, or who subsequently watches it, to think that we had made a decision and we're going to take it up again. And I was concerned that without us having that discussion and making our views known in a public meeting, it looked like we were sweeping under the rug a potentially serious issue.
That's speculation on your part, to think what everybody is thinking.
Well, I mean, I think it's a reasonable conclusion.
Okay.
Scott?
Yeah, if I may, Mayor. This is not about sweeping anything under the rug, nor is it a witch hunt. This is about restoring trust in our institutions. This is about transparency. And if we need to vote as a council to waive closed session privilege, I'm willing to do that. But what I have before me that has been put out in public session, I think, leads me to believe that the only way we can restore trust in our Planning Commission and this council is to take action on this matter. And I will be the first to say it. I actually interviewed and recommended when I was mayor that Commissioner Bacharach be nominated for the Planning Commission. So this makes me very sad. It makes me very sad. But I believe, from what I've seen that's available to everyone in the public, everyone that has seen this, it has really cause some serious questions about trust and disclosure. And this doesn't even go to the city's ethics policy. This goes to state statute on planning. And clearly in the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act, we have an issue, and this goes to Section 9 of Act 33. Before casting a vote on a matter on which a member may reasonably be considered to have a conflict of interest, the member shall disclose the potential conflict of interest to the Planning Commission. Failure of a member to disclose a potential conflict of interest as required by this subsection constitutes malfeasance in office. So, this isn't about a judgment call from us as a municipality in our ethics policy. This is under state statute for how a planning commission is supposed to act. What went before the planning commission, I'm sorry to say, I think to me at least, and I'll welcome views from other members of council, is, Commissioner Bergerac, who I nominated for the commission, in May of 2023, clearly understood the issue of conflict of interest, and disclosure, because there was a property at 703 Pleasant that was close to his house, and he wanted to mention that. And he put that before his colleagues on the planning commission, and they determined that he did not have a conflict. But then moving forward, regarding the issue of ADUs, and particularly ADUs very similar to his own, apartments over garages, he failed to disclose the similarity in February of 2024. At that meeting, the commission discussed special land use requirements for rented ADUs for 30 minutes, or roughly half an hour. He did not disclose that to his colleagues on the commission. Again, April 18th of 24, a rented ADU garage with a second floor living space similar to his. He did not disclose that. December 19th, 2024, this issue is discussed again. It's discussed again in February of 2025. So there was an error here by the commissioner, in terms of not making this disclosure. And it's put the planning commission in a real difficult position, because although I'm not sure what harm was done, I think there needs to be consequences for this. And I think the only remedy now to restore trust in our planning commission, and indeed this council, is to request Commissioner Bergerac's resignation. Failure to do that leaves us no choice but to have a public hearing before the next planning commission meeting to discuss termination of his appointment to the planning commission. And I take no pleasure in doing this at all. Once again, I nominated him for planning commission, even though we have very different policy views on things like STRs. I thought he brought a great deal of diversity to the planning commission. But in this case, there are enough questions here, and there are even more questions if we open up from closed session and we talk about the legal analysis. I have to give a lot of credit to our legal and our staff, for doing this. This was very hard. This was a very hard thing for our manager to do. But he takes his job seriously, and so does our legal counsel. So I really don't see any way around this. And I take great exception to any allegations that the mayor engages in any type of witch hunt. This was brought to the mayor and the manager by citizens who voted for us, who had a concern. There have been concerns raised by members of council and members of the community about members of this body. And the mayor has always played a fair hand. She's always, no matter who it was, making an accusation about any council member or any board member, she has turned it over to legal and staff to research it. So I have to commend the mayor for doing the hard thing. And this is a very hard thing. I take no pleasure in this, but I feel that asking respectfully for the commissioner's resignation is the only way to restore trust in our commission. And I'll carry on just to conclude that I'm sorry that the commission had to look at this. I understand their reticence to address it. A number of them have come forward to give their views outside of their role as a commissioner. I've taken it upon myself to speak to every one of them that I can. Others have come forward on their own. And they're all very concerned about the very, very detrimental effect this will have in our community's trust in our elected and our appointed officials. So I regretfully will be in a position where we either accept the commissioner's resignation because it has become a distraction, or we move forward before the next planning commission meeting with a public hearing for removal.
Great. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, this, as Councilmember Dean said, this is a very difficult situation. The struggle I have right now, and it's unfortunately because we have not chosen to disclose our closed session discussion, I'm a bit troubled by what seems to me to be a bit of a break from what was discussed during that meeting, because I was like Councilmember Muncy, had thought a decision had been made in that closed session.
Point of order, perhaps if we are going to go down this road, we should waive privilege. I don't know. I'll ask for a review from Trent.
Yeah, so I mean, waiving privilege has some implications, definitely. It would allow people to, for example, receive the legal opinion. If we waive it as to the legal opinion, or if we waive it as to the closed session, they could get either one of those documents through FOIA, would be one example of an implication that could come from that. And so if it's necessary and if the council feels that it's worth doing it in that situation, then I think it's the council's decision on that matter. Also, like I mentioned earlier, we could have independent discussions about it. If you have questions about the sort of legal standards, I can provide those in this meeting in sort of a fresh manner that wouldn't require waiving privilege or waiving closed session as to the legal opinion. But I just want to be clear that waivers do have sort of downstream implications for what can then be done with those materials. So,
to further my comments, I'll speak to the memo then, because that's public. The memo itself says that, gives all the facts, gives a lead into it, and I thought well written by the manager. But there was nothing that was suggesting that there's any action this evening. The thing that I took away from this document was that all of the facts that the council had seen in its closed session are here for public view. They were in the they were in the planning commission packet as well. So there's no difference between the two. What I focused on particularly was the recommendations that were going to the planning commission for follow-up, which is, and I'm not going to speak for any fellow planning commissioner, but I did support the motion to remove it, was that is the council's responsibility to, I don't know what the right word is here, but to ensure that all of our elected officials, appointed officials, and employees of the city are complying with the rules and laws of the city. I think that's what this was driving, was towards the training and education, learning and improvement opportunity. Well, I agree with the understanding, clarity of regulations, reliance on records and informal guidance, disclosures and perceptions. Those are things that definitely should be discussed, but I'm going to take it to another level. And I'm going to say, you know, if we really truly believe as a government and the city council really wishes to pursue growth and learning, there's other examples that should be included in this discussion. Here are some scenarios that should be included. An elected official that's found guilty of violating the Michigan Campaign Finance Act. That should be a discussion about what's an appropriate response to that. An appointed official is accused of publicly harassing two residents at a downtown restaurant. The business owners felt threatened enough by the incident to report it to the police. That's another example of something that perhaps we should bring into the conversation about what's appropriate behavior of elected officials and appointed officials.
Point of order.
Yeah.
This is council deliberation. This is not for public comment.
Yeah.
Another one is an appointed official employed by a city vendor. It is not clear whether this relationship has been fully disclosed to the committee the person serves on, or to other relevant city authorities. Additionally, it remains uncertain if the committee member has properly recused themselves from participating in votes involving recommendations to city council for contracts with their employer. I have other examples, so those are just three that come to mind that if we're really serious about this, if we're genuinely serious about this, then let's have an open discussion about some of the experiences we've had and how can we make the entire operation improve its visibility, the transparency here. I mean, you couldn't ask for more transparency. It's all there. All the facts are out there. So now it's okay, where do we move with this? And I'm prepared to move forward with having a real conversation about, okay, how do we improve and how do we learn from this? Well, let's include other examples as I just did.
I have to, with all due respect, council member, engaging in whataboutism will not restore trust in our planning.
There's no
commission.
whataboutism on that, Councilmember
So
Dean.
I'm going to weigh in here because many of the issues you just raised actually came in through our process for ethics complaint. And we followed the process that we all approved last year, which is they come to either the city manager or the mayor, the city manager, and the city attorney confer. I replied to everyone who made complaints. I kept council informed and based on the advice from council and input from the city manager. So we have followed our ethics policy to the T since I've been mayor. And and I appreciate Scott just a moment ago framing this as transparency. We need to, when there are serious allegations, and especially serious allegations backed by fact, third-party facts, to shine the light on it in the public. The part of the issue, and Russ, you are a champion of our new ethics policy, is, we need to be more transparent, we need to be more public, and we have been. And so this is part of that process. And if you want to revisit down the line things that we've already discussed, I would say asked and answered. I would also note for you that the campaign finance issue, no, they're there. I mean, you and Chris sought to have Helen blocked from the HDC Commission in late July on the grounds that she was mentioned in the EPIC report. Helen was not a target of that report. Her name was in it. So were Scott's and Lauren's. It was resolved. Nothing found.
Madam Mayor, you presume I was talking about the council member you mentioned. And two is I did not criticize the process. What I said is simply we have examples of situations that have occurred or may be occurring that we should need to bring this all into the conversation, not just the fact-based one that's in front of us. And these are not what-isms.
Well, we're on the agenda tonight is to talk about the planning commissioner matter. So that's what we're here to talk about.
I mean,
tonight.
Councilmember Gardner can either we can call it whataboutism, or we can call it muddying the waters. We have a clear issue before us.
Right.
We have a clear issue before us. We have what appears to be a failure to disclose under Michigan statute for how a planning commission should conduct itself. There are a number of examples in the public domain now that a commissioner failed to disclose a potential conflict. Multiple examples of that. There's some other issues as well that are equally troubling, and that's why I'm not recommending action today. I'm recommending that, given the distraction that this has created, the commissioner either elect to resign or we have a hearing for removal that will allow us to focus in on this issue. Because I think, owe it to the community to resolve this issue in a way that restores trust in our planning commission.
Okay.
They were renting out that unit as they were delegated by the city, by the folks that were working in the city, by the way that they administered it. And the minute that they were told that, no, I'm sorry, this has to be an ADU, this is how you have to do it, they went through the process to do it. This was not intentional. And I believe that most of us council folks, including you, Scott, expressed at one point that we felt that this was not intentional.
You're once again delving into our closed session minutes.
I said, I think.
I would just reiterate that we just please be careful with that. I've sort of laid out the options, and I think exercising either one would be appropriate, but sort of walking the line is just going to make it even more difficult. So let's either avoid it entirely or bring it up as a discussion item.
Well, I think if we're having this kind of discussion, that it needs to be out in the open. I mean,
Well, we can have the point, Gregory, of this meeting is to have this all out in the open. And so we're here. It's a public meeting and people can say whatever they wish to say.
Right. Do I have to make a motion to allow that session to be open, or how can I make that happen?
Yeah, you could make a motion to waive either the closed session confidentiality under the Open Meetings Act or the attorney-client privilege as to the legal opinion, or both. And it would be a majority vote at that point.
Thank you.
Lauren, we haven't heard from you.
So, I've thought a lot about this, and I think the whole short-term rental debate has been really hard on our community. We've had to make some really tough decisions, and I think we've done the right things along the way. As a council, we've been open to hearing whether the restrictions have had unintended consequences or if points of the new ordinances have been unclear in any way. I'm not here to judge my fellow residents. I'm not here to judge whether Commissioner Badgerak or his wife should have done something differently with his STR registration. Our planning administrator and city manager found errors in their past. Ultimately, Commissioner Badgerak and his wife registered their home and ADU properly and paid the appropriate fees. I know 3 planning commissioners have asked that we as a city council make a decision on this and that some sort of penalty should be rendered. And I appreciate Commissioner Badgerak's commitment to serve on our commission, and I don't have a desire to remove him from the Planning Commission. Perhaps censuring Commissioner Badgerak would be more appropriate. If there's a public hearing on it, those are 2 options that could be considered. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, this concerns me on several levels. I'd have to say that very much in line with what Council Dean said. It seems clear to me, in addition to the potential conflict, there is a fact, right? Our ordinance was violated, and it was violated by a sitting planning commissioner. And I sat through those meetings. We discussed ADUs up and down in great detail, and it's very hard for me to get past not knowing how that ordinance was structured. I mean, this was probably one of the most deeply discussed ordinances that we've had on our books for the last probably several years. But even if we get past that, right, I mean, now we're in a situation where we have, a planning commissioner. By the way, I respect CJ. I respect the work he's done. Anybody who steps into that role, I think, is giving their time to our community, is committed to helping our community. But if we get past the fact that maybe you didn't know, right, if you give the benefit of the doubt, I still have to ask myself a question. It goes from trust to confidence, right? Do I have confidence that, he's going to take the time to understand the ordinances that are out there? I mean, that to me, it's like you can't have it both ways, right? Either we have a trust issue, in which case, you were going down the path of there was an ordinance there, the ordinance was violated, and you knew what you were doing. That's a big issue for me, right? And I think it would be a big issue for anyone in our community. If you don't go down that path, then you have to go down the path of, well, why didn't you know it? Why didn't you take the time? I mean, we all took oaths, right? Believe me, I read that ordinance so many times because this ADU thing kept coming up, right? And I wanted to make sure I knew what was going on. Just hard for me to fathom that any planning commissioner didn't really understand the details of how that ordinance was written. So, when you boil it all down, it's a really tough decision, right? We're measuring the conduct of somebody who's donating their time, who's a very smart and intelligent person, against the needs of the community that demand trust, and also the integrity of this council and our ability to function together. I mean, we're up here to make tough decisions, right? So, it tears me apart, but I agree with Council Dean, that we should be asking for his resignation.
I keep going back to, a learning point for our staff as well. They had rented it under the premises of what it was when they bought the property from the previous owner, and continued renting it under the premises of what it was understood by our administration here. And when they found out, and as soon as they found out that it wasn't, because it really is, I mean, if you look at the property, although there's a small part of it, it all is under one roof. And the minute that they found out from our administration that, no, it's not how we've been giving you your license. It's not how we've been allowing you to rent this. This is something different. They made it right away. And again, I will say Kimberly does all the managing for the rental. I don't know how much CJ is a part of that because I know that Kimberly does all of the managing for that. CJ is often, in fact, the last year and a half or whatever, he was on the east side of the state with a job, coming over here back and forth. I know that Kimberly does most of the management for that. So I don't know how much CJ really understood that, and I can't answer for him. I can't sit here and say, yeah, he might have talked about ADUs here or there, but he probably, what I'm guessing is that he didn't understand. As soon as it was brought to his attention, he made it right.
Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's clear that there's not been a change in position with the current city staff or current administration. Commissioner Badgerak, when I interviewed him, indicated that he and his wife relied upon a representation made by the zoning administrator in 2022. That zoning administrator hasn't been here in some time. The way that it wasn't that city staff brought this to Commissioner Badgerak's attention and he applied. He indicated that during a case in August that had an attached ADU, that he realized, oh, I might also have an attached accessory dwelling unit that might need special land use approval as well. Didn't realize that there was such a thing as an attached ADU. So indicated that he realized that in August.
Oh, okay.
And then applied a couple of months later in October when his short-term rental certificate was set to expire.
Well, that makes me understand it even better, that he was able to understand that, yes, this is, I didn't realize that it was, and I want to make it right.
So I agree with both what Scott and Joe have said. I think what really I find most concerning about this is, I don't know how many months the Planning Commission debated and deliberated on ADUs and what changes, if any, they should make to them. Do they do non-conforming, make non-conforming conforming if they meet the other requirements? CJ's ADU was not compliant. I mean, even if he had applied for an ADU certificate or license, it wouldn't, before the new, am I saying this wrong?
Special
land use, I'm sorry, thank you. Had he applied for special land use when he discovered that he had, an ADU, and I will say I find it very hard to believe he didn't realize he had an ADU. I mean, he's been very involved in ADU conversations. Nonetheless, it would have been denied because his ADU didn't meet that criteria. So he was essentially, without disclosing that he had a personal interest, deliberating and voting with planning on something that would benefit him, because once the requirements changed, he could be approved for special land use. Did I get that correct? So
yeah, so one of the things that Commissioner Badgerak indicated in his interview is that he didn't believe necessarily that he had an ADU is because he had, separate gas connections to the home as well as the accessory dwelling unit. There was a requirement essentially that if you were going to apply for a special land use approval to rent your accessory dwelling unit, that you had to comply with the accessory dwelling unit standards that were in place at the time. If you had a legally non-conforming accessory dwelling unit, you weren't eligible to obtain special land use approval. Well, that changed back in February of 2025. Last year, the Planning Commission recommended and you all approved a change that essentially indicated if existing ADU was legally non-conforming, it provided a path, because the Planning Commission essentially had a backlog of cases that didn't comply with today's standards. And in order for them to actually rent and receive a special land use approval, they needed an ordinance change. So I think what you're indicating is that really until February of 2025, Commissioner Badgerak's accessory dwelling unit probably wasn't eligible to even receive special land use approval because it didn't meet the utility connection requirement. It may not have met the size requirement. I have to do some more, analysis on that, given its size and the size of the single family dwelling. And you kind of have to look at a ratio of either 600 square foot or 30% of the size of the house, whichever is lesser. But I think that
Yes.
seems to be what you're.
And so, and then it's deliberating without disclosing a personal interest. And that's wrong. Deliberating on changing the guidelines. I mean,
I still don't see him, I don't see any, intentional malicious intent. I don't see that.
I'm not saying he's malicious.
Sounds like you are.
Well, you can interpret my words however you wish.
I can.
I think he violated conflict of interest policy. They were renting the short-term rentals. They were renting out the ADU. It didn't have a special land use permit. And we're all responsible for knowing what the requirements are, and especially for someone who I think attended all, if not most, of the short-term rental task force meetings and is very up to speed on our regulations. So anything else? I think we're probably ready for a motion and a vote.
I just to wrap this up, I mean, at the end of the day, all of our commissioners and board members, they effectively serve at the pleasure of the council. And it falls upon us to make these hard decisions as a council. And, I think we all have various opinions on the severity of this issue, but I think nobody disagrees that this has cast a shadow over people's trust, and credibility of our boards and commissions, and indeed this council. And I really feel, and this is based on my conversations with, every council member that I've been able to speak to one-on-one, boards and commission members who have offered me their individual opinions outside of sort of their meeting, because obviously they couldn't take it up as an action item. And I understand that, but I really tried to gather as many facts as possible. And, as someone that appointed the commissioner initially and approved among all of us unanimously to reinstate him on the commission, the optics are just, the optics alone are so problematic that I see no alternative other than to ask for his resignation, because I believe he has lost the confidence of the majority of this council and the majority of the planning commission.
So in terms of motions, we can move to do nothing and vote on that. We can move to conduct a public hearing to determine actions going forward, or we can move to ask for his resignation, and failing that, have a public hearing.
I would support the latter.
Make a motion.
No, I'm just another comment. I've served with pride with Mr. Badgerak for several years and voted for his appointment to the Planning Commission. And again, I agree with Councilmember Muncy that I do not think, based on the facts that we reviewed both now in open and closed session, that there was some confusion. There's been confusion across the board about some of the regulations that the city has passed, and we've had to deal with those. I do not think there was any malicious intent, or whether it was his wife, who, from my understanding, is running the STR, as opposed to CJ Badgerak as a planning commissioner. I do not think there was any intent to knowingly violate the city's ordinance. As a matter of fact, some of the attestations have been made is that they were told one thing by one person and someone else and so forth. We've heard that story a number of different times. I think the unfortunate thing here is that we talk about integrity. Well, those scenarios I mentioned are real scenarios. And if you want to talk about integrity, we've missed chances over the past several years to instill increased integrity and accountability at the city council. That's one of the reasons why I was pushing for the ethics policy review, is because I'm seeking that. But with the situation at hand, my position is to not do anything with this at this point. I also with Councilmember Peterson not being here this evening too, I value her opinion on this, and I think that would be remiss on us, and I think not responsible to have this discussion without having that vote here and get what her position on this is.
Well, she's not back until May.
And whether a censor is appropriate, I honestly don't know. I don't think asking for resignation or removal of Commissioner Badgerak is appropriate for the situation.
We need a motion.
Motion to request Vice Chairman Badgerak's resignation from the Planning Commission. Failing that, a public hearing to deliberate removal from the commission. Is that, Trent, does that
Yes,
work?
yeah, that should work. Under the Planning Enabling Act, the legislative bodies of the council has to set the public hearing, or has to make the decision at the public hearing. So I think that makes sense. Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, it's a roll call vote.
Don't have any further.
No, is
discussion.
there further discussion?
Can you repeat your motion, please? Just want to make sure.
Motion to request Planning Commissioner Badgerak, Vice Chairman of the Planning Commission's resignation. Failing that, or if such a resignation is not forthcoming, to schedule a public hearing seeking his removal, or maybe a public hearing on the matter. Help me, Trent. Public hearing on the matter prior to, I believe it's probably appropriate, prior to the next Planning Commission meeting. Which I
Yes.
think is for now.
I think that's appropriate. I don't, there is a notice requirement for public hearings. I believe it's 15 days. So you might have to, I would maybe just leave the date for staff to determine at a later time. And then as for the rest of your motion, I think it is sufficient.
Okay, Jamie, did you get that? Okay, thank you.
So, go ahead.
You ready?
Yeah.
Roll call
Thank
vote.
you.
Uh-huh.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
No.
Muncy,
No.
Stanton.
No. Motion fails, right? 3-3. Okay. Is there another motion? I mean, I'm assuming we can do another motion with that one failing.
Correct.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, it wouldn't make sense, I don't think, to bring the same motion again, but since there's multiple options on the table, you could vote to take a different option.
I'll try again.
Okay.
Motion to respectfully request Commissioner Badgerak's resignation from the Planning Commission. Failing to secure his resignation, hold a public hearing on censure and removal from the vice chair position. Is that okay, Trent?
Yes,
Is that-
yes, I think that's okay. I don't believe a public hearing would necessarily be required for censure, but I think it doesn't
Okay.
hurt to hold it if that's what the council so chooses.
Well, then let's,
Can you repeat that?
well, let me think about this.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the public hearing, the notice. All right, let's try this. If we're. Okay. Motion to respectfully request Commissioner Badgerak's resignation from the Planning Commission, failure to secure his resignation, to hold a vote on censure and removal from the role of vice chairman of the commission.
I think that would be sufficient, yeah.
Okay, and that doesn't require the public hearing or the notice.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussions on the motion?
So if we don't receive Commissioner Badgerak's resignation, then we would hold a vote on whether to censor him
And remove him.
and remove him from the vice chair.
The role of
position.
vice chair. I mean, given Chair Mans's travel schedule, I just think it would be very problematic for him to be at for Vice Chair Bacharach to be chairing and leading the Planning Commission, given this matter?
There is a secretary of the planning commission who could serve in that capacity. And I believe that's Mr. Lachey. I can see him smiling.
Okay.
So are you suggesting that if this goes forward with the censure, that Mr. Lachey is immediately appointed vice chair?
No, I didn't suggest that at all.
Help me understand,
no.
help me understand the secretary piece.
No, just saying that if there's not a vice chair or a chair there, the secretary, my presumption is, would serve in that capacity. But I'm not suggesting that
Okay.
anybody be nominated to that position.
Okay.
That's for the planning commission
Yeah, that would be
to decide.
Okay, thank you for that.
So if we pass this tonight, then do we censure tonight? Is that or do we, I guess we wait to see if he resigns. Right.
Yeah,
Hold the public hearing in his motion, so.
I thought we took that part out.
public hearings out, It's not required.
Yeah.
I just,
Maybe.
I thought Trent said we didn't have to have the public hearing.
I would like to give Commissioner Bacharach some time to reflect on our deliberations, maybe have some other conversations with his colleagues on the planning commission. I think we owe that to him, to have some time to digest how seriously that not only this council, but his colleagues on the planning commission take this matter and reflect on it. Once again, I take no pleasure in this at all. This has been one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make as a member of this council, but I do think I can't risk the damage to the public's trust in our planning commission, because we have one of the best planning commissions in the state of Michigan. And I just cannot see its reputation sullied by this council not taking some concrete disciplinary action on this matter.
Agreed. Okay, any further questions before we vote?
No, can you repeat your motion? I'm sorry, but you guys are confusing me a little.
No, I
bit.
know.
I'll make sure I have
Okay.
this
Have something to say first, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I can, tell me if I've gotten this down correctly, Council Dean. So it's a motion to request Commissioner Bacharach's resignation. Let me know once you've got that piece.
Yeah.
If there's failure to secure the resignation, hold a vote on censure
Yes.
and/or removal from the vice chair role. Now, whether or not the council can make a decision about removal from the vice chair role might be something we have to research a little bit. I don't know if Trent has an opinion on that right now or not, but we can always address, look into that in the meantime while,
Yeah, we could definitely look into that. I do know that the bylaws of the planning commission provide for appointment of a vice chair, but as we mentioned earlier, that body would serve at the pleasure of the council. And so I'm fairly certain it would be within council's purview to control that and to control the roles, but we can look into give you a more definitive answer on that one in the meantime.
Okay.
Question on the motion. There is no timeline on this. There should be a timeline.
Agreed. I think, we should figure out how many days.
Planning commission met Thursday, so they meet again in less than 30
April.
days? In April. How many meetings we're missing a meeting, so how many times are we gonna meet prior to
Planning commission meets on April 16th.
April 16th?
so you won't have another regular meeting until April 13th.
And they meet on the 16th?
Correct.
All right, so I think if a resignation is not forthcoming, I think we should be voting on censure at our meeting on the 13th.
All right.
So add on April 13th to add to the end of your motion. Add a date.
Well, hold on a second.
Would it be April 10th when the packet comes out? Like to have it by then? Is that,
No,
I'm just
Seems
at.
like it would be sooner so that
How-
staff has time to get the packet ready, knowing.
I would suggest giving something within 30 days or something, which would be, we're March 23rd, so April 23rd. I mean, even if it overlaps with the planning commission's meeting, I think. I don't want to rush staff.
Him to decide.
30 days. I mean, I really want to give him the opportunity to reflect on all of this and consult with, his friends on the planning commission. This is hard. This has been hard on everybody. And like I said, I take no pleasure in this whatsoever. But I do think at the end of the day, my hope is that for the good of the city, for the good of the planning commission's integrity, that he takes counsel from his friends and his peers on planning on this one. So let's give him some time. 30 days.
All right.
That's my motion.
So Jamie, do you have the motion?
Yes, from 30 days from today,
Yes.
30 days from March 23rd.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think anything before we vote? Did somebody second it? Joe did.
I did.
Okay. All right.
Clark is second.
All right, let's do the roll call.
Anderson.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner.
No.
Muncy.
No.
Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right,
Madam Mayor, before we move along from this topic, I do want to emphasize again my points about those scenarios. If the city is truly genuinely concerned about integrity and ethical behavior, we should be thinking and talking about other scenarios. And these are not what-isms. These are actual situations. I don't want to name names, but we need to have a conversation. If we really truly believe in this, then let's do this at an open, talk about, okay, how do we learn from these situations? This seems very directed at one situation because it's very acute. However, there are things that I believe, to Councilmember Dean's point, there have been damages to our integrity in this community from different situations that have occurred. I've had conversations with people in the community too, and there's some serious problems. And I know that the process was addressed, but we never talked about how we get away from that. What do we do differently going forward to make sure that people are not put in this position? This is a difficult position. I completely agree with Councilmember Dean. This is a difficult situation. How do we stay away from this going forward? Well, it's through the suggestions that the city manager put in his memo. I completely agree with the learning and training opportunities. We should have that conversation. This should not be the end of this discussion.
well, let's, when we're revisiting our quarterly priorities.
Madam Mayor, this is important. This is not something we put on a list of projects.
So
I don't know what could be more important to this community than the integrity that we're talking about this evening.
right, I completely agree with you. In fact, I was a big champion of our new ethics policy, and we did have the opportunity to discuss a lot of those last year.
But
And
I've made my point.
Russ, we have our process for adding things we want to tackle is to do that quarterly so that staff can plan. One, we can see if there's consensus among council to do that, which is the first step. And if there is, staff has time to prepare. So we'll put that on the list for next month.
But it seems to me to give the mayor more priority to what's on the agenda
Yes.
is
I
what it
agree.
looks like to me.
That is our rules and procedures. So that's what we got. Okay, let's move on to staff reports, boards, commissions, staff reports. Ryan, anything else you want to say from yours? All right. Fire District Administration Board. Hi, Dan.
First off, I want to apologize. My phone rang earlier, but some of you may have seen it.
Didn't hear it.
Didn't notice.
It was my oral surgeon calling me to ask how I was doing
Oh,
3 hours after sitting in his chair for an hour and a half. So I ask your indulgence. It was not pleasant, but And I didn't want to miss the call, so whatever. So this is, well, the next one has a schedule, but I included this picture from this barn fire on Old Allegan, March 6th. Simply because I thought the picture was emotive, to say the least. I'm not even sure which of the firefighters that is. That was not sure, I think that was, yeah, it was just a barn fire, not an illegal burn, although we'll talk about that later. Next one, please, Jamie. So this will report on the fire board's meeting on March 16th. Briefly, and it was a short meeting, we reviewed the February response data, which I'm going to share with you in a bit. We talk more, as we regularly do, about the 415 Wiley second station development and where that stands. We will look at the proposal from a third architectural firm. I'm confused. I'm not sure which one's Wednesday and which one's Thursday, but whatever. One of those 2 days, we'll see the third one. And then the cost recovery update since the prior meeting, $2,263.50 received. Next fire board meeting is not Monday, March 16th. That should have been changed. I think it's April 16th, because I think the numbers line up similarly, but whatever, you can find it. February response data, 54 incidents, year-to-date 141, down from 25, down less, but down from 2024 for the month. Response times there, February 26, 7 minutes, 28 seconds, and you see that was the case a year ago for the months shown. Next one, please, Jamie. ALS times, as you know, these move around some, but actually the Saugatuck one is down, I think, fairly significantly, a couple minutes or whatever from the last time. But the rest of them you see there. I want to make the point on the township, both north, but particularly south. Oftentimes, that's an area where the life EMS vehicle and staff will come from Fenville, where a separate site in Fenville that will assist their own people. We don't pay for that. The patient data is about pretty much as you've seen in the past, unless you've got a question. Next one, please, Jamie. 7 motor vehicle incidents in February, year-to-date 23 of them. Typically the weather and when the snow starts falling hard, as it has several times, and my phone's ringing, I get the calls. And it's always a semi out there, and it was one just last week. So the area distribution for the calls is as you see there. And Douglas Cove calls, which I've told you before, we're watching particularly carefully, and we'll probably at least arrange another meeting. Douglas Cove is now the orchards at Douglas Cove, which I think reflects, from what I can tell, and I visit there regularly, a new sign. Yeah, not much else has changed my untrained eye. But one thing that's changed is the sort of rapid rise in our calls out there. Next one, please, Jamie. This one is, I thought you might be interested. The TMA truck, traffic management apparatus truck shown there. This is data specifically for that piece of equipment in hours and minutes in the various locations. As you see there, the dominating one is 196 in 2025, 21 incidents, 41 hours the truck was on that road. And 2026, so far this year, it's been employed. It's not employed in every incident out there, but 15 incidents for 27 hours and such, and the rest of them go down the line. Douglas isn't blocked out there. There weren't any in Douglas. Next one, please. I thought you'd be interested. Everybody likes shiny new red trucks. This is the ambulance. It's been, I think, close to a year in the making.
Oh.
Getting the vehicle itself, which is a four-wheel drive, big diesel Ram truck, took time. And then the box that's on the back, they call it the box, is what they call a remount. It's a used box that is then completely refurbished. It's a way to save money. So, although if you look at it, you can see it in the picture, you can't tell which part's new and which part's old. I mean, it's just an amazing job. In the back, you can see the accommodations, if you will, inside. The step that you see, you don't see the whole thing, but at the very end of that, the whole step is hydraulic. So to get somebody up and in. And I include the other thing for those of you who are mechanically or electrically inclined, the fuses and connections in nothing short of amazing. And I dread to think when something goes wrong, hopefully somebody knows how to figure out which one of those things you pull on. Next one, please, Jamie. This one, I think the last one of consequence, is a clarification. I think I may have left the impression when in response to a question from Councilmember Gardner, either last time or time before, I can't remember which, that residents in the fire district would never be tapped for the expense of a fire on their property. That's almost always true. But when the burn is illegal, as it is in this case, that is a matter of discretion for the chief. And in particular, this one's kind of egregious because that's all construction waste from the house or building that's behind it. And if you see on the right side, they threw everything in there. I don't know what's in those buckets and cans or what was left over or whatever. You've got groundwater issues, plus you had the fire. I mean, it was not a small fire. The neighbors called in. So this is going to be a cost recovery item. So it is possible. So if a constituent of yours says they can't charge us, can they? I say, well, not if you're, stay reasonably within the bounds. And they don't go, the department doesn't go looking for ways to excuse me, screw taxpayers. But again, if it's egregious. Well, Jamie, I think that's it. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dan.
If
Questions?
there are any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Dan, for the follow-up on
Yeah.
that question. Appreciate it.
Sure. How am I feeling? Like I want to go home.
Go home. I hear bourbon's good on, Gregory, Interurban Board.
Yes, our February ridership increased by, I keep saying increasements, and again, almost 500. Seems like every month I'm saying we have 500 more than the year before. And it's again, 468 compared to last year. We had almost 3,800 passengers for the month of February, which is incredible. Year to date, already from the beginning of the year, just with these 3 months, we're already up 3,923 riders. Our Holland ridership, as we have that Holland bus that we do on Tuesdays, it's increased. We have 4 regular riders that take it every Tuesday and a few occasional riders. And then just a reminder that we're still doing takeout food as well. So if you want to order takeout from your favorite restaurant, you call the restaurant and put your order in, then call Interurban and we'll pick it up for you, bring it to your house. Our construction update, we are getting closer. The paint is painted, the ceiling and flooring were finished this week. Restrooms and lockers will be installed soon, and our office furniture is being ordered. We have printed, and as far as our square update, our spare update, I mean, that's our new app, the Interurban app. Is a great way to get around now. We printed yard signs with QR codes, business cards with rider information, And that QR code that you can download the app will be distributing, well, we have been, and we will continue to distribute those to our local businesses. We applied for a grant from the CVB again this year, like we do every year. We're still waiting their response. We'll be changing the shuttle parking route this year to include Douglas. We'll have one pickup and one drop off in each town. In Saugatuck, we'll be dropping off at the corner of Mason and Butler next to the visitor's sign there at the drugstore. And in Douglas, we'll be dropping off at Beery Field. Pickup locations are to be determined. We'll also be asking whether any local businesses would like to sponsor shuttle parking, as they would receive advertising in return. We celebrated National Transit Driver and Dispatcher and Mechanic Appreciation Day. That was on March 18th. And to recognize the staff, we had lunch for them. We're continuing our conversations with Stephen Ringelberg and Jim Johnson over at Laketown, hoping to place services on the August ballot for Laketown, but we're crossing our fingers with that. We don't know how well we'll do with that. We will be receiving 4 Ford Transit vans from Kalamazoo Metro. They're used vans. They all have about 100,000 miles on them. They hold 10 passengers each. So that'll help with our increase in the demand that we've had. They have rear lifts, and we'll be painting and wrapping them and getting them on the road. By the time we get into our summer season, we should have, we currently have 8 vehicles, but we should have 12 vehicles on the road. As I told you at our last meeting, our last update, we also were able to secure 2 grants for 2 of the larger buses. Those will come, of course, later in the year because they take time to build. We received all your questions, Mayor Anderson, with questions about.
And appreciated the
Yeah,
response.
and I have the whole list right here, asking all the questions, and I'm glad that we were to answer all of those for you as we move forward. We are getting less money from state and federal. We did, in fact, this month we received less disbursements from tax dollars for this month. And so we will be, again, as I've said throughout the last year, look for us on the ballot in August, asking our folks to invest just a little bit more for the interurban as we keep growing. So yeah, we are on the Fenville, and thank you to the council for voting that through. But I believe, from what I'm understanding from the council over there in Fenville, the folks that serve over there, that sounds like it is going to go through and that they will be putting it on the ballot for this year. And it sounds like a lot of people are supportive of it. It's quite obvious a lot of people are using that service. So, yep.
Thanks. Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Cal Lake conditions continue to improve since we brought in the new administrator who you all met, I think, in our last meeting. He's got his feet under him. He's making good progress towards, improved stability, evaluating new hires. He's met with, I think, most of the community leaders, spending time now out in the field to better understand the operational side of things. Just a couple other things. Hydrant flushing is coming in April, so be prepared for rusty water, potential pressure dips at various times. And then, of course, what comes with that sometimes is the hammering of the underground infrastructure. So it tends to find weak links, right, and expose them. So there may be some repairs coming at us. At our last board meeting, we held our elections. That was preceded by a recommendation from the township manager that the board chairs serve a single 1-year term and rotate into a vice chair position. So a lot of discussion around that, with some recommendations that 2 years would be more appropriate. But no motions were made. Nothing was really formalized into the bylaws. Greg Freeman was elected into the position of board chair, and I'll be serving as vice chair for the next year with Jennifer Lovequick as secretary. Beyond that, I think I mentioned there's an SRF grant, loan and grant that's being pursued for a number of upgrades to the sewer infrastructure, especially in the plant, as well as removal of the sludge in the ponds, and that's still progressing, quite well. We met with the engineers a couple of weeks ago, and they're getting more detailed plans. So more to come, and that's about it.
Great. I think the Harbor Authority has a meeting
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. And ZBA, anything new on that? I don't think so.
They did have them, yeah. Yeah, they had a meeting, correct? Want to come up and give?
Yeah.
It's Grayson's here. We'll take advantage of
Yeah,
a quick
there we go.
update.
ZBA met to discuss a variance for 250 Mason Street, which is the church street on the street here. They were seeking relief for a landscaping buffer to be able to accommodate additional parking in their area, and that was granted. They're turning that into a new bed and breakfast, renovating the site. So
Great, thank you. Historic District Commission, Scott.
Our next meeting is on the 2nd of April at 6 p.m. I think we covered the big news from our last meeting, 640 Water Street, so which the council discussed earlier. So
Great, Russ, planning.
Yeah, planning commission met this past Thursday, I think, as we all know now. We discussed 640 Water Street, which the PUD was on this evening's agenda. We tabled 2 items for 510 Butler and 120 Mary, also known as the Wickwood Inn and the former Beacon House. More to come on that regarding conditional rezoning, as well as a text amendment to the definition of motel/motor courts in the zoning ordinance. So that will be discussed at our next meeting. We reviewed our annual activity report, which I believe will be brought to the city council at some point, as well as the item that we discussed this evening, item E, which was actually removed from the agenda. The master plan update, we're looking at targeting a fall wrap up for that. So that's been an ongoing project for about the past year and a half. I believe Planning Commissioner Bobby Gahn is a representative to that. And we'll hear a report. Austin Marino, one of our planning commissioners, gave an update on the parking improvements task force, which was also in the manager's report. So.
All right. PPW, Lauren.
We meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Okay. Not anything on the Tri-Communities motorized trail?
actually, we do have a meeting on the 26th
Okay.
this week on phase 1A of the archaeological site survey. So
Oh,
Ryan and I
great.
will be participating on that at 9 a.m. on the 26th.
That's great. Water Sewer Operations Contract Advisory Committee, Russ or Ryan?
Got a meeting scheduled in April?
The meeting's in May, so we're just kind of in a holding pattern waiting for the consultant's presentation. So
Thank you.
yep.
All right. Logo and Branding Advisory Committee?
Yeah, we had our first initial meeting with our consultants. It was Historic District Chair Tim Straker was there, Kristen Armstrong from the SCA, Council Member Peterson and myself were all a part of the meeting. And it was just our introductory meeting and kind of letting them know why we wanted a new logo and branding refresh with the city council's priorities to redo our website and also to get wayfinding signs throughout our business community as well as signs within our parks. Just wanting to have a refresh on our logo and our branding to make sure it was exactly the way we wanted it to be able to do all of those things going forward. So we let them know that, and then we really went into the creative part of it and just kind of some ideas on what our thoughts were. But we hope to be getting ideas from them, and then we'll whittle it down and bring those to council. So
Excellent.
looking forward to it.
Thanks, Lauren. And then Gregory, Parking Improvements Task Force.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of the volunteers that have been helping out with this. This is, we're going into our 4th meeting. It's a very big meeting. As Ryan said, I implore everybody to start looking at some of the numbers as they're coming in, because we're starting to get some of that. I'd like to thank Austin Marino, Kathy Brockington, Wendy Colson, Alec Pateliner, Michael Gustitis, Gary Cott, and Becky Carton Crandell for all volunteering their time. Of course, John Dorset, Julie Kroll, and Ryan Cummins. I mean, they all get paid, but they're still doing a great job. But I implore you to look at our upcoming agenda, where we're going to start talking about parking inventory fieldwork and initial mapping. We're going to be talking about the online survey. We still got we got all of our numbers in. We're kind of done with that. We've had over 600 people participate in that survey. We'll have results of the stakeholder interviews. So those are folks that are very important and detrimental to events and things like that going on in town. Cost and build to operate a parking structure. Because if you look on Facebook or if you follow me around, you'll hear a lot of people ask about, oh, why don't we just build a parking structure? But there's lots of things to explain about that. And that packet will help guide you through some of the reasons why that might not be a good idea for us. Paid parking is going to be considered. We've talked about that. And so that is something that we are going to explore. Signage, wayfinding assessment, remote parking options, framing the parking challenges in Saugatuck, discussion of field data collection details. And then, of course, we'll kind of narrow down the rest of our meeting dates because hopefully by the end of August, we'll have suggestions here to the city. Real interesting. If you go to the survey results, you're gonna see a lot of interesting things here that I took away, and a lot of people that took it. 37% of the people that took the survey were either full or part-time residents here of the city. 30% were full or part-time residents of Saugatuck Township. Only 21% were visitors to Saugatuck, and 12% were full or part-time residents of the city of Saugatuck. So when we look at this pie, we realize that a lot of the people that did take the survey are people that are going to be really affected by the parking here in downtown. 34% of the people that took the survey work outside the city of Saugatuck. 30% of the people that took the survey don't have a job. They are not currently working or retired. Of course, we know the median age here in Saugatuck, which is about 58 or older. A lot of us are retired. So yeah, that's something to put into consideration. 15%, but that's a good number, I thought, too, was 15% of the folks that took the survey were owners of a business here in Saugatuck. So it sounds like we're getting a good ear from folks with the survey here. So I implore you to, go ahead and look at all of those. It's a big packet. We were able to, reach out, and the open-ended questions are there. So you can see all of the individual people that had, different comments that they wanted to make. Our parking study stakeholder interviews are involved in that as well. That includes the opinions on the current parking system, what we're doing now, annual days of the reaching capacity, views on parking structure, and support, and as we're finding opinions are split on paid parking. So I implore you to take a look at all of that. Our next meeting is going to be on April 7th. That's a Tuesday. And now is the time. I see a lot of folks that were on today because I see that the Planning Commission and this whole subject seemed interesting. It's been a long time since we had this many people in the audience or online. And while you're here, if anything that you guys are interested in parking, anything that you want to add to, now's the time to do it, rather than wait until we're at the finish line and we're ready to make those recommendations, because we really want to listen to everybody when we're thinking about solutions for parking in Saugatuck. And just another reminder for folks that don't know, off-street parking, including parking that's owned by the city of Saugatuck, we have almost 19,000 parking places here. In the city of Saugatuck. There's 1,560 off-street parking this side of Maple Street. There's 303 parking places that are owned by the city of Saugatuck. So I want to remind folks that there's a lot more parking here than I think folks realize. And every time I bring that number to folks that come into the flower shop or I see out front of my studio there, they're always amazed to know that there really is a lot of parking here. So I think as we get closer and the more that we find, what really is the problem, I think it's getting these cars to have a little bit more in and out, a little bit more rotating. So that's one thing I think that we need to work on. And from living here myself, and I've preached it for a long time, is finding adequate parking for employees. Because I know Butler Street and Water Street by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, especially in the summertime, they're already full with cars that are going to be sitting there for 8 hours or longer. So as we move forward, that is also something that we'll be exploring as well, how we can help find employees of our businesses to find parking that will kind of free up the immediate downtown parking.
Great. Thanks, Gregory.
Thank you.
Okay, we're our second public comment period. People can speak on anything they wish. Start in the room. Any comments?
Hello, CJ Baker, X610. Thank you. I appreciate the commentary. I appreciate that I do serve at the pleasure of the council. Lauren asked me to not to put my application in, which I did disclose my STR. I did several times at various meetings. I'm not sure if you, some of the new members had been aware that I did have an STR, but behind us, I will look to improve the 30-day request. We'll do that as quick as possible to not let it drag on. So with my time, I'll still say the interurban information was great. I'm glad to see the finances there. It was good information. And are we getting the water bills this year or this month? Are we getting the water bills first of the month?
I showed up today.
Yeah, I did mine. Yep.
This isn't a Q&A, sir.
You'll get one. Thank you, CJ.
Anyone online wish to make a public comment?
Rakesh has his hand raised.
Okay, Rakesh?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, council, for allowing me to speak. I've submitted a letter, which I think you all have gotten. The thing that I would like to highlight, I've gotten a response from City Manager Cummings, which I respect, that holds to the previous letter administered regarding my license and the issues. What I would ask you all to consider is that that letter does not respond to the very square issue of the fact that my license was the first one to expire, and that my license was the one that was the clarion call for the rest of the STR holders to get their licenses in, to be able to apply for licenses prior to their expiration, to be able to perhaps even complete their licenses without any issue before it. It was my license, the single one, the first one, that was the sort of triggering event that created this situation that, like, the compliance is at 95%. Now, do I know that for factually that's the case? I can't know. I don't know what everyone's application deadlines were. I don't know what's happened, but like, that's been word that's gotten back to me, was that, it was again, a surprise to me that any of this happened. It was apparently a triggering event within the community. I do not mean to ascribe blame to the city staff. I appreciate how complicated this is. I appreciate how complicated it was for me to manage it, in which case I hired local representation and a local agent in order to manage it, not because I didn't want to deal with it, but because I recognized it was going to require a specific instance. So I would ask the city council to respectfully, recognizing city manager's response to this thing, to ask enforcing officer to say, these are extraordinary circumstances that were unforeseeable. And the details I've laid out in an exhaustive letter that I prepared with exhibits around it. I'm happy to answer any questions around it. But to me, this seems like a somewhat fundamental matter of fairness. Like, I was the first one through the chute. I was the one who, sort of signaled for everybody else that this was an issue that needed to be dealt with, which in your wisdom, you dealt with it. And you issued an amnesty, you created an avenue for which both avenues were created in order to renew the license were unavailable to me, not by any circumstance of my own outside of the random issuance of the license date. And that's clearly outside of my control. It's clearly unforeseeable. So I would ask for you to look at council, city manager's response, and also ask council to redirect around considering it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you,
And
Rakesh.
anyone else on?
Thank you.
All right. With that, we get to correspondence. Jim Bouck's letter was in the packet, and we've received hard copies, and everything will be in the next regular council meeting packet. So we get to council comments. Russ, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a good meeting this evening. I appreciate all the conversation and comments. I stand behind my comments and my vote on the motion that was made regarding the planning commission issue this evening. And I'll just say that integrity and ethics opportunities for improvement are not a quarterly project or signing a form on an annual basis. Promoting ethics and integrity requires ongoing, consistent support every day. To genuinely foster trust within the city among staff, elected and appointed officials, vendors, and others, it is essential to implement practical strategies and encourage ethical conduct. I will not accept, this is a quarterly project we have to put on the list. This is something that has to be in our DNA, and I think we have some immediate opportunities for improvement. And tonight's example is just one.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, good meeting, tough meeting. I know that we don't always all agree on things, but it's good to know that, we can work through these things collectively as a council. And I think hopefully we all agree that we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard here. And, that's ultimately, well, I take no pleasure in some of the recommendations and the discussions we had. I think that's the direction where I hope we're heading. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Joe. Scott?
Yeah, just to echo what Councilmember Clark said, I value every citizen that puts their hand up to basically volunteer their time to serve the city. So I applaud everyone for doing that. And it's one of the horrible parts of this job as an elected official that you have to sometimes call balls and strikes. And it's not fun, but it has to be done. It's what the community expects of us. And in, once again, the spirit of disclosure, I will again remind everyone that Rocky Rakesh, who's online, is my neighbor. When this issue came up in the summer, I mentioned this to council. I want you all to know he is my neighbor. I did attest to the facts that he presented. He was going through a divorce, and it was a complicated procedure. He has asked me for my views on what his options are, and I have endeavored to explain to him the decision-making at our council meeting, which he attended but had questions about. So I will say I am sympathetic to his situation, but I will also say that if the council does take this up, or if the director takes this up, I will be happy to recuse myself if the council wishes me to, given that he is my neighbor.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Gregory?
I've served this council this is my 4th year now, and I've seen, I have to agree with Russ a little bit, and forgive me for saying this if it offends you, but I know a lot of people, as well as myself, has seen unethical behavior from folks not just serving on council, but also a past employee as well. And it's I think that when we talk about reviewing how people act and people that continue to stay on council, even after they've been found guilty of being unethical, I think it's a great subject, Russ, to continue and to talk about an ethics policy. And I know you've been beating at that door for, it seems like 2 years now, at least that I can remember. And I really don't remember any kind of formal discussion on it. But I think it's something to be thought about. I've seen a lot of things here happen in this, just sitting in this chair the last 4 years. And it's funny how something is pointed at CJ right now. So it's funny how we pick and choose what we really want to analyze. On a lighter note, we are 2 weeks away from Easter. I want to remind everybody, Douglas is having their Easter egg hunt on April 5th. They're not having the parade this year, which I'm a little bit disappointed about, but they are having the Easter egg hunt and the bonnet hunt. So, I mean, to me, the Easter parade in Douglas, not having the Easter parade is a lot like not having a Venetian parade as well. So it would be neat to see a little bit more folks volunteer. I used to do a lot of events in this town, and I'd like to see more people volunteer and keep these events as great as they have been.
Lauren?
I have no comments tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, it was a tough meeting. I'm glad we can talk about hard things. CJ, you and I joined planning at the same time, and I have great respect for the work you have done. You always were prepared for meetings. You contributed well. And even though we didn't agree on short-term rental policy changes, your voice was important and actually, I think, helped shape a better policy than we would have had without it. I take the ethics and my particular responsibility with that very seriously. And I stand by how everything that has come before me as mayor has been handled. We've been transparent, we've been fact-based, we've been open, and I believe we've been fair. We've followed our policy to the letter, and I commit that as long as I'm in this position, I will continue to do that. In terms of the ethics policy, Gregory, we updated our ethics policy last year. And we met at great length with our HR attorney, and we could ask her all sorts of questions, and we did update the policy. So I just wanted to be sure you were aware of that.
I'm totally aware of that. Thank you for reminding me.
All right. So I guess with that, I will thank everybody for their contributions tonight and ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Gregory, who is here. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.